Afternoon, everybody. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Eckert. I'm on the board of directors of the Central Florida Jazz Society, and I'm a new board member. I've retired from a college position and I've been here a couple of years, and I got to tell you, I've been to a lot of places around the country, around the world. This is one of the finest jazz supporting societies that I've ever seen. So give yourselves a round of applause. My colleague Doug Glicken here has these cards. There's a little QR code there. We encourage you to join because after like 2 or 3 concerts, your membership is paid for and everything else goes to scholarships. We host a very wonderful scholarship competition every year. And again, I'm amazed at the talent that I hear in this area, and you'll hear it here this afternoon with the Flying Horse Big Band under the direction of Jeff Rupert. So the reason I'm standing up here today instead of Doug is our next concert, November 9th, we're doing a veterans tribute, which will feature some members of the premier military bands in Washington, D.C. I'm one of them, so I'm a saxophone player. Thank you. A couple of gentlemen that I served with also in the Airmen of note, Pete Barenbreg, who lives in Venice, Florida. He was in the band, and we each did at least 20 years in the band. I mean, it's such a good job, unless you screw up, you're not going to leave, right? And they're not going to kick you out. Tim Leahy, excellent trumpet player, he's retired also now, but he lives up in the South Carolina area. He's going to come down, and he and I were on the band together. Clyde Connor is a fantastic drummer, and he was a drummer in the Navy Commodores. We're going to let him play anyway since he was in the Navy. But just an awesome drummer. And on piano, we're going to have Bob Boguslaw, who is in the Marine Band in Washington, D.C. And I guess maybe also we can share some stories that are not, top secret with you. But he played in the White House. He was like the piano player for all the little combos in the White House. So I'm sure he has some interesting stories. We have a local bass player joining us, Greg Zabel, who I think was a member of this band not that long ago. So that's November 9th, same time. I hope you can join us. And Doug has some more information for you for the concerts that are coming up at Judson's. Doug?
Thank you very much. It is going to be an amazing concert. You all have to come out, and what I will tell you, and we were talking about it earlier, is anybody that was a former member of the military, there's going to be a discounted price for tickets, and again, all the money will go for scholarships. What we do know is we have a seasoned concert card in the back there, and we do concerts here second Sunday of every month. And so we have his coming up next, and we have one in December and January and so forth. Please check that out and come. How many people are members of the Central Florida Jazz? Oh, I love that. That's great. Okay, for those of you who are not, there's a QR code. There's a membership. Please consider joining because it keeps jazz alive, and that's what our vision and mission is for the Central Florida Jazz Society. So in addition to doing the concerts here, the monthly concerts here, we do also have some concerts coming up at Judson's Live at Dr. Phillips. Has anybody been to Judson's Live yet? All right. It's another very nice venue. And so our next one is Katie George. So we have the Grammys here in the United States. In Canada, they have the Juno Awards, and Katie George has won the Juno Awards the last 3 years for jazz. She's October 23rd. There's 2 shows at 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And then after that, we have Greg Parnell's Orlando Jazz Orchestra. We love that. Thank you. He's a board member. Everybody knows him. We love him. His band is fantastic. He's going to be there October 29th, same time, 7 and 9 o'clock. So please consider coming out and supporting Central Florida Jazz. And now I'm going to introduce you to Jeff Rupert, who is the leader, the band, the intelligence, the amazing saxophone player, Jeff Rupert.
Great to see you all. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to always play for the Central Florida Jazz Society. I always call it the State of the Union address for the band. But if I'm speaking in those terms, we're early in the term. I think this is our second concert of the season. And one of the pleasures of hearing the band is if you hear it today and then hear it again in April, they will have a complete metamorphosis, but I assure you they will be swinging today. Are you all ready to hear some jazz? Great. I'll stop talking and we'll get to the music. That was composed by Jimmy Van Heusen. That was called Come Fly With Me. How many of you remember it from Frank Sinatra singing it? Of course, right? You know, Jimmy Van Heusen's real name was Gordon Badcock. He changed his name, and not many people know this, but he was out partying at night, hanging out with Frank Sinatra and all the like in Hollywood. And in the mornings, he would get up and go down to Long Beach, California, where he was a test pilot for spy planes in the military. No one knew it. It was top secret. Not anymore. That arrangement was by Billy Byers, and any jazz musician will tell you that when you buy an arrangement by Billy Byers, it comes in the mail. When you get it in the mailbox, it's already swinging. So that was just, if you think they sounded good on that one, let's hold out until they play a couple others, because Billy Byers is just the most amazing arranger. Wasn't that a fun arrangement, fellas? Yeah. How about it for Tanner Goulet on the tenor saxophone? Brand new drummer in the jazz band, Matthew Black on the drums. Matthew. Landon Genovese on the bass. And starting out the piano solo, one of our longtime students. He's a senior now. This is Sal Martinez. Sal Martinez. Acknowledge the audience. Turn to the audience. There we go. Yeah. We're going to continue now. We just played something that I said swings out of the box. We're going to play something now that all the musicians that were in the band said this is the hardest music we've ever played. And some of the more egoic members of the band, like Coleman Hawkins, said if it wasn't for the great band members, the band never would have swung. And I'm speaking about Fletcher Henderson's band. But to Fletcher Henderson's defense, Fletcher Henderson invented the jazz big band. There was no jazz big band before Fletcher Henderson. So we're going to play one of Fletcher's pieces. And in a very tangential kind of way, in Fletcher's music, bands figure out how to play it. I was on tour in Brazil doing a Fletcher Henderson tour, and I figured out, you have to play it much quieter than a lot of other music, and it'll start to swing. And the other thing about Fletcher's writing is the horns play the drum hits. So the horns are really the drums, and the drums are just, the drums. But we're going to play Fletcher's arrangement. And by the way, Fletcher was going to Columbia University to become a chemist. He was getting his master's at Columbia, and he was working so much as a musician, he quit college. So, all you naysayers about making a living in music, the guy quit chemistry because he had more of a solid living to make as a musician. So it's not all that bad for musicians. So you'll have to take my word on that. But fascinating individual. And he had a brother who was also a great musician named Horace Henderson, who actually wrote the song called In the Mood that somehow ended up in Joe Garland's hands, but Horace Henderson actually wrote it. I think it was called Hot and Bothered, if I'm not mistaken. At any rate, Fletcher was kind of a cool dude too. Check this out. He used to sell his arrangements to all the other band leaders. So his band would play his charts, Chick Webb's band would play his charts, and so would this next gentleman. This is a Benny Goodman feature. He wrote it for Benny. This is called Just You, Just Me. And we're going to feature, actually, a couple of our trombone players, Tristan Mahady, and a brand new trombone player to the Flying Horse Big Band, Matthew Chancon on trombone. Stand up, Matthew, so they know who you are. All right, here we go. Here's Fletcher Henderson's arrangement of Just You, Just Me. Good luck, man. It's going to be hard, guys. Isn't that a fun arrangement? Not easy, not easy. Trombones, stand up, take a bow. Let me introduce you all. All of you. Yeah. So you already met Tristan. You could sit down, Tristan. And Matthew, you could sit down. We have a brand new freshman. He comes from South Florida. Please give a big Orlando welcome to a freshman jazz studies major. He could have gone to school anywhere in the United States, and he chose UCF. This is Quincy Pierre. Quincy Pierre. You can have a seat, Quincy. And one of my favorite students of all time, because he doesn't have to play in the jazz band at all. He's a classical trombone major, but he's not a favorite of mine because he plays in the Flying Horse Big Band. I know he knows he's going to get a workout if he's in the big band. Isn't that right? Yeah. So, but one time I dropped my kids off in the summertime for a jazz camp up in Brevard, North Carolina. You know, the jazz capital of the world. At any rate, who do I run into? My man Harrison. He's like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to get my chord changes together, Prof. This is Harrison Cloninger, great trombone player. Thank you, Harrison, for being here. And I was delighted. I was gone last year, as some of you might know. I forgot to really say, I teach at the University of Central Florida, and where I'm lucky enough to oversee the jazz program there on our record label. Anyway, I had a year off, and a wonderful former student of mine who's close to my family. I call him my third son. His name is Saul Douch. Covered for me while I was gone, and I think he did a wonderful job with my students in the band, and I think he played a concert for you last year. So, yeah, I was happy to see Saul down for the year. He's doing great. I'm going to see I'm playing in New York on Friday at a club down in Greenwich Village on Friday night. I'll see him over the weekend. But a bit of a full circle moment for me. This is my 31st year at the university, and yeah, I'm not going to make a joke about how old I was when I started or anything. But funny thing is, in my first band, there's a great trumpet player named Kenny Boyd who's here. He's over there somewhere. Maybe you could just wave your hand, Kenny. So Kenny Boyd is one of the best band directors in the country, in my opinion. He teaches at West Orange High School, and we're lucky to have people like Kenny working in Central Florida. And when Kenny was a student, my first year, he played in wind ensemble, orchestra. Did you play in a marching band, Kenny? Yes. Probably a brass ensemble too. And he also played in jazz band. That's what all the trumpet players did when I first got here. It was amazing. We had people like Kenny and Travis Heath. But at any rate, the interesting thing is Kenny now took over. I started the Florida Symphony Youth Orchestra Jazz Orchestra, and Kenny took it over. He runs it. So my youngest son, Django, who's a tenor and alto saxophonist, plays in Kenny's band. So Kenny's a former student of mine, and now my son is studying in his band. And to make matters worse, Kenny's son is playing third trumpet in the band. That's Garrett Boyd playing the same. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if your dad played this piece in my band when he was in college. It's quite possible, yeah. So anyway, I'm not sure what that all means or anything. I don't know if it means anything other than I'm just making more friends, and that makes my life better. But we're going to play now a piece composed by John Coltrane from his classic album called Blue Train, and it's a song called Lazy Bird. We're going to feature several members of the band, including Garrett, who's going to play some trumpet. Garrett, by the way, is a music major, Bachelor of Arts music major at UCF in classical trumpet, but he also is a mechanical engineer? Yeah, mechanical engineering major. What do you do in all your free time, my man? At any rate, we're going to feature Garrett, and I think Tanner's going to play, and a couple of the other guys as well. I don't recall. I'm sorry, guys, but I'll catch it on the backside. Okay? Yeah, we'll play. All right, let's take it. This is an arrangement written for the Woody Herman Band, and it featured a great tenor saxophonist, Frank Tiberi. And mothers, if you're ever worried about your kids being in music, check this out. I'm playing in November. Well, the band is playing in November with George Garzone. A very famous saxophonist named Michael Brecker was asked in an interview once. He said, Michael, what's it like to be the greatest saxophonist in the world? And Michael said, I don't know. Ask George Garzone. Well, George Garzone is going to be playing with this band on Friday, November 14th, I believe. And then we have a record release party. We're releasing our 9th album for Flying Horse Records. It's an album featuring Mr. Garzone. It's called Unbridled. The Flying Horse Big Band meets George Garzone. So please come out for that. And then that Sunday, George and I made a record that was the #5 album of, I think, 2022 or something. But George and I are playing all the music from that album at the Dr. Phillips on that Sunday. And I think there's still tickets available. So it's going to be a fun time. But the reason I mentioned George is his teacher was a gentleman named Frank Tiberi, very famous saxophonist who got his start in the Woody Herman Band. And Frank's originally from Philadelphia. But check this out. My man George Garzone is on sabbatical right now, like I was last year. And he's got a really heavy Boston accent. I go, George, who's covering for you while you're on sabbatical? He goes, forget about it. Frank Tiberi's covering for me. I go, how old's Frank? He goes, he's 97. So you guys are really, really babies. All right, you ready? Let's play Lazy Bird. Here we go. sunny side of the street, sunny side of the street. You can't go wrong with playing a standard, that's what I say. How about it for our wonderful soloist, Atlas Eggley on the tenor saxophone. And our two trombone players, Tristan Mahady and Matthew Chacon on the trombone. Nicely done. And how about it for Colin McCallan on the trumpet as well? Colin is a computer science major. And our other trumpeter on the end, Dylan O'Shea, is a mechanical engineering major. And this year, we didn't audition a lead trumpet player, so helping us out tonight is our UCF graduate, always welcome on the bandstand, Alex Kastner. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. And also, how about that swinging guitar solo on Lazy Bird? George, do you have your driver's license yet? George is very young. No, I always tease George. Isn't George the best? He swings, and he always brings a good heart to the bandstand, which is half of life is just showing up with a good attitude, right? My man. On Monday nights after college, I would go, by instruction of my professors, by the way, I would go to the corner of Bleecker Street and Thompson Street in New York City to the Village Gate, where on Monday nights, Tito Puente would have salsa meets jazz every Monday night. So we're going to play something from Tito Puente's book right now. Before we do, I have an announcement to make, actually. I got a call last week from Jazz at Lincoln Center. Jazz at Lincoln Center called and said, I couldn't believe it, actually, but they actually said, they mentioned the Flying Horse Big Band by name. They said, we would like to have the Flying Horse Big Band come up and play at Lincoln Center in January. So this will be one of, there'll be 9 other college jazz bands that were invited up. And I had a nice conversation with the vice president of jazz at Lincoln Center. At any rate, this band is invited up, and a small group from within this band to play for all the other universities, which is great, in my opinion, because these guys, I'm already thinking about where they're going to go to graduate school. So the top 9 or so other graduate programs in the country will be there, and so it'll be kind of a fun experience for them to hear other musicians their own age, and also perhaps have an opportunity to look at graduate schools. Not to mention, Wynton Marsalis and guys from the Jazz at Lincoln Center Band are going to give these gentlemen a master class as well. And on top of that, they're going to get to hear, together with those other 9 bands, Wynton's band play. And if you haven't heard the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, it's a great band. And funny side note, my older son goes to school in New York City, and his band might be there playing as well. And I told him, I said, well, did your band director tell you whether or not? Because they rotate students. He goes to, like I said, to a school on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. And he says, no, I don't know yet. I said, well, tell him if he doesn't use you, then I'm going to bring a UCF T-shirt and you're going to play in our band. And at any rate, so we're fundraising. We're in the midst of, it's going to, they waived any kind of fees for us to be there, but getting a big band up to New York and hotels and back, as you can imagine, that's going to cost a pretty penny. So the band is going out and performing. My goal is that these students all go there without any cost to them, that I owe it to them as their teacher to help get them there. So we're going out and playing some gigs. So things like today are helping out with, today I think we'll cover 1 plane ticket, that's great. Only 18 or 17 to go, or 19 to go. So be cool, we'll be cool. But at any rate, I thought you guys would all like to know that. Here is Tito Puente's Mambo Inn. It's actually composed by Mario Bauza, but Tito made it famous. We hope you like it. Listen, this music started as dance music. If you feel like dancing, feel free, even if it's on the inside, okay? Was anyone dancing on the inside? You were, I could tell. Yeah, I could tell. I could feel it. Yeah, me too. Doesn't look too good in the grocery store, I tell you when I do it, but hey, at any rate. Jacob Tracy is a first-year graduate student on the baritone saxophone. How about for Jacob? And of course, we featured Daniel Bonnet. Daniel Bonnet's a junior. And Sal Martinez on the piano as well. We're gonna play a very serious song next. We've got a couple songs this set. The older I get, the more of a fan of Duke Ellington I become, and I really admire his co-writer Billy Strayhorn quite a bit. Billy wrote great songs like "Take the A Train," "Sepia Panorama," two of the three Ellington theme songs. He wrote virtually half of Duke Ellington's suites. He wrote tunes like Buddha and Smada and Upper Manhattan Medical Group for his medical team. And this tune as well, which, if you can imagine, this man's mind was beyond understanding. But he was told by his doctors at the Upper Manhattan Medical Group that he had very limited time to live because his esophageal cancer had spread throughout his body. And he wrote this song apparently right after they told him that, and it's simply called Blood Count. And there's two great recordings of it. One is 1967, Duke Ellington's cathartic measure for the band to get over Billy's dying that year was to actually go into the studio and record a bunch of Billy's songs. Someone asked Duke Ellington when Billy died, "Are you going to be okay?" And Duke Ellington said, "No, nothing is okay." And that recording of Blood Count, and then a month before Stan Getz died, he recorded Blood Count as well. And what's amazing, you know, in jazz music, we were based out of dance music, but like all concert music, all feelings are valid and all feelings are part of the palette for music. And what amazes me is in this 3 or 4 minute piece, Billy Strayhorn covers all the stages of acceptance: denial, grief, bargaining, anger, until the very end, where there's descending triads in the trombone section and a pedal point as if depicting going underground. And the first time we played it, Dan Bonnet is going to play Johnny Hodges' part. There's all these convoluted chords on top of that that are very complex, and I just instinctively turned to Dan and said, "Play the blues." And he understood immediately, because the blues is certainly apropos for this song. So this is a tremendous piece of work, and it happens really quickly. I hope you enjoy it. And if you don't hear everything that I just mentioned, I urge you to check out that album. It's called "And His Mother Called Him Bill," and it's a really fantastic album. You can hear the joy in the band and the sadness, but it's all there, all the human experience. And after all, isn't that what jazz really is just a personification of what it's like to be an American? Here we go. Here's Blood Count. By the way, not to be too programmatic, there's a part where the trombones have you can stand up, it's all right, have a very odd part. And the guys looked at me like, "How do we play this?" And we talked about it very quickly. I gave them some technical advice about subdivision. And I said, it's like an IV drip. When you hear the trombone part, it sounds out of time. I'm convinced Billy Strayhorn orchestrated an IV drip. Daniel Bonnet on the alto sax. How about it for the whole band? The whole band. We've got one more for you this set. This is another Duke Ellington composition, but this one's arranged by Manny Album. Manny Album's a famous arranger. He lived in New York, and he wrote for many bands, including one of my favorite swinging bands, the Terry Gibbs Dream Band. Main stem is another way of saying your true north. At any rate, here's Terry Gibbs' arrangement, or Manny's arrangement for Terry Gibbs' Dream Band of Duke Ellington's classic Main Stem. We're having a great time. I hope you are too. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. Cool. A 10-minute break after this so the boys can get a drink of water real quick, and then we'll come back and play another set. Is that apropos? Great. Thank you. How about one more time for the Flying Horse Big Band? We'll be right back. Grab a drink. We'll see you in a minute. Sorry to keep you waiting. Did everybody make it to the bar okay? Well, that makes one of us. I didn't, but that's that's okay. I'm gonna go out after this. I'm gonna go out to dinner with my wife. Oh wait, my son has a rehearsal. That's right. All right. Well, maybe after his rehearsal, but it's a pleasure to be here for the Central Florida Jazz Society. Like I said, it's kind of like the State of the Union address for us, and I'm so delighted and appreciative of you all just supporting the band and the students. You know, everybody talks about our natural resources. I say it all the time, but our greatest natural resource is not gas or coal, it's our kids. And thank you. I can tell you, my son is in college, and he got a scholarship from the Central Florida Jazz Society, and several of these kids did. And I can tell you, as a parent our son's college is very expensive, it's a private school, I can't tell you, and I'm sure my wife, who's quiet, but she's here, I think, would agree, is that the scholarships you guys are giving to kids make a huge, huge difference. Thank you. All right, that's the corniest speech you're going to hear all night, I promise. I'll stop with my schmaltz. We're going to start with a beautiful standard arranged for the Maynard Ferguson Jazz Band. This is called A Foggy Day. Tanner Goulet on the tenor saxophone, Matthew Chacon on the trombone. And as I was thinking about it, how many of you guys, gentlemen in the band, have received a scholarship from the Central Florida Jazz Society? Daniel has, Tanner has, anybody else? Matthew has. So thank you again. Thank you again. And I know for a lot of these students, these dollars and cents make a huge, huge difference. Isn't that right, Sal? Yeah, they sure do. I know they do. All right, up next, we're going to play something from the bebop era. The bebop era was really, in many ways, the music of Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker was a Kansas City-born saxophonist. Did any of you read that book? I read a while ago, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. So the whole premise, right, was like not only talent or intelligence, but also being essentially at the right place at the right time. Imagine Kansas City is the crossroads for all these territory bands. Territory bands are basically any bands that aren't located in New York City. These bands are crossing through Kansas City. Kansas City, Tom Pendergast was the mob boss in town, and they really kind of ran a blind eye to prohibition. So there's all these clubs, and bands are coming through. Well, this is where Lester Young and Coleman Hawkins and Shoeberry and Ben Webster all kind of met. These are all very important tenor saxophonists. They all met and would kind of, as some of them would say, they would have a jam session, and then all of them would get and call their mother on the phone and say that they won, you know, like those kind of things. So imagine Charlie Parker is growing up in this. He's growing up in this situation. He's actually playing the baritone horn at first, and then he switches to the alto saxophone. And so here's a genius growing up in the perfect environment. So what is an outlying situation for these great improvisers, having these cutting sessions, for lack of a better term? Charlie Parker's 13 years old, checking them out, listening to it. Well, the end result, of course, is Charlie Parker basically reinvents modern improvisation to be not just based on tertian harmony, but upper extensions of chords and polytonality. So here's a guy deeply rooted in the blues, but also very intellectual at the same time. Fascinating individual. There's a story, he was playing at Birdland, and Stravinsky walked in and sat down, and Charlie Parker's playing, and Stravinsky's sitting there laughing. He just keeps laughing, and people are like getting uncomfortable, like, why is he laughing? And even the guys on the bandstand are like, hey, Charlie Parker, that's Stravinsky. Why is he laughing? And Bird, that's Charlie Parker's nickname, he's just grinning. Well, Charlie Parker was figuring out how to put in quotes from Igor Stravinsky's Petrushka in his saxophone solo. Then he quoted the Firebird Suite in another solo, and the only guy that was getting it was Stravinsky, and Stravinsky was howling, you know? Like, it was just amazing. I would have loved to have been there. Maynard Ferguson, my old boss, used to say that it would always amaze him because Charlie Parker would walk in, and first thing he would do is say hello to Maynard Ferguson's parents, who were two high school teachers in Canada. And they would say, oh, this lovely man, Charles Parker, just came and introduced himself to us. And Maynard would freak out. He'd say, that's Charlie Parker, Mom and Dad. Like, and so anyway, you know, as much as things change, everything stays the same. So it's fun to play Maynard's version of A Foggy Day. And now we're going to play something, as I said, from the bebop era. This is composed by Tad Dameron, great composer and a wonderful pianist. This is called Our Delight. our delight. And a few minutes ago, I mentioned that Duke Ellington's band had 3 theme songs. The first one was East St. Louis Toodaloo, composed by Duke Ellington. And then Billy Strayhorn wrote 2 of them. He wrote Sepia Panorama, and of course, probably the most famous song that people associate with the Duke Ellington Orchestra, and that is Take the A Train. And everybody likes to take the A Train. I mean, everybody likes to play the song, Take the A Train, sorry. And I like to take my son takes the A Train all the time, which is very, very fun. You know, I don't know if it's true, but allegedly it was when Billy Strayhorn left Pittsburgh to join Duke Ellington's band, that Duke Ellington wrote directions. He said, get to Penn Station from Pittsburgh, and then when you get to Penn Station, take the A train. It's the quickest way to Harlem. And that's the first line of the song. You can take the A train. It's the quickest way to Harlem. So, at any rate, we're going to play Cheeto Puente's version of Take the A Train. Here we go. Featuring the trombone section. 1, 2. Oh wait, piano up front, of course. Ready? Let loose. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Landon Genovese on the bass. Landon just graduated high school, I guess last year, but switched his major midstream. Is that right? Yeah. Landon Genovese went to Winter Park High School, and he's a local. Actually, he's not the only one. Also, Dylan O'Shea went to Winter Park High School, too. Yeah, fine program there at Winter Park. Anyone else go to Winter Park High School? Just want to make sure I don't want to leave anybody out. We are going to play a piece. I never in my life thought we would play a piece with this name. This song is called Rhubarb. I grew up, I like rhubarb pie, just don't eat the leaves, right? I tell the band, they don't believe me. It's true. We're going to feature the only gentleman I haven't introduced in the band yet. How about it for Andrew on the alto saxophone? And he's going to play the leader's part on this. The leader of this band was a gentleman named Charlie Barnett. Charlie Barnett was a big fan of Duke Ellington's. A lot of his music emulated Duke Ellington's band. And this arrangement of Rhubarb, and the composition actually, is by a wonderful tenor saxophonist named Al Cohn. I'm sure some of you have heard of Al Cohn. Anyone here heard of Al Cohn? Great tenor saxophonist, used to not only play tenor, but also write a lot. He had a band with another saxophonist named Zoot Sims. Very funny guy. Al Cohn was very funny. I know his son Joe Cohn. We used to play together a lot in New York. And Al Cohn would give like in New York, he was kind of off color, I guess, but he would give, bums would be asking for money, begging, and Al would say, "Promise me you don't spend this on any food." Yeah. And then I remember Al was in Australia, and someone said to him, "Hey, we have great beer here. It's called elephant beer. Would you like an elephant beer?" And he goes, "No, I drink to forget." At any rate, enough of the bad jokes. Let's go on with Rhubarb. We're going to feature Andrew, and who else has a solo in this? Alice on the tenor saxophone, and we're going to unleash our secret weapon. No, not you. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, our brand new freshman in the band, Quincy Pierre, is going to play a trombone solo. You ready, Quincy? Yeah. All right, here we go. Here's Rhubarb. So saxophone. Atlas on the tenor saxophone, blowing down the house. Beautiful sound, Atlas. And Quincy, his maiden voyage with the Flying Horse Big Band at the Central Florida Jazz Society. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. As I mentioned, we've got a couple things coming up. We have in November 14th, George Garzone will be with the Flying Horse Big Band for a CD release party. It's our 9th album for Flying Horse Records, which is the record label that we started at UCF a few years back. And 3 of those albums, by the way, have gone to #1 on the national jazz charts. That's the pro charts, not the college charts. So we're very proud of the band. And so George will come down the night before, we'll rehearse, and we're going to play a lot of the music from this album. One of the songs that George wanted to record, when he was a kid, his saxophone was given to him by his Uncle Rocco, who ran a pizzeria in Boston. And he used to walk around the pizzeria playing his saxophone, and he said, Jeff, I just have this fond memory. I used to play along with this Stan Getz record called Reflections. I don't care, I'll do the record, I'll do whatever you want, but could we maybe play Reflections? And he said it so beautifully, like, how could I turn down George? So we had an arrangement written for him, and I think we're going to play it for you today. But George isn't here, so if you give me a minute, I'm going to grab my saxophone, and I will try to play George's part. It's just a ballad, but, beautiful tune. Side note, George is a huge fan of Stan Getz and John Coltrane. And he's really probably the preeminent interpreter of the music of John Coltrane from about 1962 on, the latter part of Coltrane's career. But George told me a funny story. I hope he doesn't mind me telling you, but he said his mom never really liked that he was a musician. When he graduated from Berklee School of Music, he got a job with this rock band from England. The leader's name was Tom Jones. And George's mom, this little Italian lady, she's like, you mean to tell me I put you through college for you to play in a rock band? And, of course, Tom Jones was very big in the mid-'70s when he graduated. So at any rate, George said, his mom always loved Stan Getz. And, years later, she was on her deathbed in the hospital, and she was laying there with her eyes closed, I think in maybe kind of a coma. And George loved his mom dearly, and he brought his saxophone, and he started playing The Girl from Ipanema because she loved Stan Getz so much. And he single-handedly brought her out of this semi-coma, and she opened up her eyes and went, stop. Oh my goodness! There's a B.B. King blues that I always talk about. I used to love to see B.B. King sing, and it reminds me of that song right now. B.B. had to sing a song called "Nobody Loves Me But My Mama," and sometimes I think she might be jiving too. I'll be right back. Give me just a second. You guys all set with those doubles? Yeah. Maybe I can kick it off and run and get my horn. No, I better.
So what's the difference between a piano and a tenor?
So this one time at band camp, I got jokes, bro.
You guys remember the repeat? Got the repeat? 1, 2, 3, 4. fall? No, it won't fall. Yes, it is.
Tanner, if it falls, you're paying for it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of a wonderful afternoon, and I can't thank you enough for having the Flying Horse Big Band from the University of Central Florida, your friendly neighborhood big band, here today. Oh, yeah. A couple things I forgot to mention. First off, how about a big thanks for the folks here at Blue Bamboo, and let's say a prayer and send warm thoughts to all the family here at Blue Bamboo. Also, I want to let you know something. I always forget to do this, but as I mentioned, I've been here 31 years, and I have no intention of retiring anytime soon. However, I know that it's important to, one of the things I'm trying to do is rather than just do my job and then when I'm done, be done with it and go on my way, is I'm trying to create a legacy to where when I do step down as director of jazz studies, that the person who follows me will still have a budget. You see, I was lucky enough to receive a endowed trustee chair from the University of Central Florida, and that's actually going to run out at the end of this year. We had an anonymous donor put forward $100,000 of matching funds. So anyone who donates $5, it becomes $10. $1,000 becomes $2,000, $50,000 becomes $100,000. And what that does is supports this jazz program for things like our trip to New York, for making records, and making sure that these kids don't have to worry about buying food when we're in New York or buying plane tickets or anything that we do. So I want to let you know if you're interested to help support jazz and make sure that it's continuing long after I'm gone at the University of Central Florida, then please consider donating to the, it's called the UCF Jazz Excellence Fund. I think it might say that Jeff Rupert UCF Jazz Excellence Fund, but if you search for it, you can find it on the internet through UCF's foundation. And at any rate, I just want you to know that moving to Orlando from New Jersey and New York City was hard at first, but for 30 years, it's been better and better every year. And our very first album we did was called Jazz Town, because in my heart, Orlando has become a jazz town, and it's just amazing. We've got jazz clubs, we have a 24/7 NPR jazz station, we have a jazz society like you all. So thank you all for making Orlando a better place. We're going to close out with a tune by John Coltrane. It's called Impressions. If any of you are interested in jazz history, Lewis Porter has a Substack, Lewis spelled Lewis, who talks at great length. It's free. You can get on his Substack, and it's like reading National Geographic of jazz. I mean, it's like every week. Today, I think it was something on Art Tatum. I haven't had time to read it yet. But he discovered some new information on John Coltrane. And this song, Impressions, this isn't really new, but the first part of Impressions was actually Impressions, a classical piece by Morton Gould. And the B section to Impressions of John Coltrane's piece, Impressions, is from another, I'm sorry, I said Impressions by Morton Gould. It's Pavane by Morton Gould. And the B section, or bridge, of this song is Pavane by Maurice Ravel. And John Coltrane put these two together. And it's funny, on the first recordings you hear of it, he's playing at the Village Vanguard, for example. And he had played a song for a long time with Miles Davis called So What? And they have the same chord sequence. And you can hear him if you turn up the record. He says to his band, so what? And then he goes, boom, boom, boom. And they kick it off, right? At any rate, he called it for years, So What? And he didn't know what to call it. And then he came across this Errol Garner record, who had an album called Jazz Impressions. And he had played jazz pieces they were jazz impressions of classical pieces. So finally Coltrane says, I'm just going to call it Impressions. And it's gone down as probably one of the most important and impactful songs in jazz since about 1960. So we're going to play it now. It's arranged by Slide Hampton, and I have no idea who we're going to feature in the band. We'll see when we get to the solo section. That's the fun part, right? All right, you've been a great audience. Hey, band, how about a hand for these people? Yeah. Here's Impressions. Thank you very much. One, two, three. Matthew Black on the drums. The Flying Horse Big Band, your friendly neighborhood big band. Thank you very much to the Central Florida Jazz Society. We love you. Thank you so much for having us out. And thank you to Blue Bamboo. We appreciate you all. See you soon. Thank you very much. Good night. Hope to see you November 14 over at the school. Take care.